Look at, I said, I guys gonna be here at 7:45. So I told first period today, you have to be there at 7:45 because that's what they sent. I showed them the email. Then literally in the middle of first period, they sent another email that said, remind everybody to start checking students in at 7:50. You have to be seated at 8:10. So first period is going to be there really early. So you have to be, they're going to start checking people in the library at 7:50. The earlier you're here, the quicker you get out of a line. So get here, you know, if you're by 7:45, actually, then you'll be out of it. Standing in line is not the most pleasant thing. And don't bring your phone, don't bring your watch, you know, all that kind of stuff. And your Chromebooks, you know that. And I think you need, I don't know what they do for bribes. Just see me.
I think 5 days.
Yeah. And then I think you should be done by midnight. If you're lucky. 1 o'clock? Does that sound about right? 1:30, yeah. So, yeah. Yes. Yes. So get comfortable. All right. So, I was not ready for that question, but yes. And what else? Something else I was going to tell you. Oh, there's a robin. 2 robins. World War II. All right. Oh, vigilante parade. I'll talk to you about it on Thursday, but there is an opportunity for extra credit if you work on the float.
What if I don't have the
And I have something with that too. Cadets and band too. I'll give not a lot, but a little bit. And last year, I tell you, last year's parade was very good. There were a lot of good floats, but people had a lot of fun with it. And yeah, I thought it was a good parade, so that was fun. All right, here we go. So World War II, that's Versailles. That's after the Treaty of Versailles. We have a whole new map of Europe. New countries created. Germany is split and divided. And one thing about this is a modern world now. People have different expectations about their role in government and how much they're going to be involved. Even the most authoritarian dictatorship, the people still have a role in this government. Now, it might not be the same as democracy, they might not vote for their leaders, but the people can overthrow dictatorships, usually involving someone with a head on a pike. So don't forget, all governments in this modern era, there's an expectation they must do something to appease the people. They have to meet their needs in some way, no matter how authoritarian they might be. So let's talk about the growth of, it goes with the Industrial Revolution, and just like socialism, just like communism, it comes out of these changes. Fascism. Now, fascism is authoritarian dictatorship, and there's a big argument today, for example. What's fascist and who's fascist? Is anybody who's authoritarian and fascist? I find it a little silly. There are elements of fascism you can see in a lot of different dictatorships. And the important thing is to realize, no, not everyone's going to be Mussolini or Hitler, but we can see parallels sometimes. And that's what we learn, and that's how we can adapt to this. So it's an authoritarian dictatorship. It is modern, though. This is a modern development, and it's, add this word, political. These are politics. Authoritarian dictators have to be politicians. They must be. And some are incredibly talented. And giving the people a feeling that they're a part of this great movement, even though they might not have power at all. And here you see the glorification of the state. That is the new Italian flag with the fascist symbol. That is the Italian flag when it was first created as a constitutional monarchy back in the 1860s. And they would add a fasc a little bit later on. The Italian flag now is just green, white, and orange, green, white, and red. And I had an Italian exchange student. I should add, the first pizzas we know it came out of that flag. In fact, first pizzas were actually made out of flags. Did you know that? Tomato sauce, mozzarella cheese, basil. And if you go Margarita Pizza, and if you go to Naples, there are two pizza places that claim to have made the first pizza, and they fight over it. Yeah.
So why is that looking axe usually used for that?
Hey, let's talk about it. Should we talk about that? So, so let's talk a little bit quickly about World War I. Italy felt cheated in the war. They had horrific casualties, did not do well, and they were promised all of this land here when they entered the war in 1915. Also islands here, other colonies, and they didn't get what they wanted. So the army did not do well, was humiliated many times, nearly decimated in 1917. And they came out of this war feeling like it had not been worth it. Disillusioned soldiers, and this is ironic, but it happens a lot. Even on the winning side, they were disillusioned. And so it felt like things were bad. A veteran of the war, a guy by the name of Benito Mussolini. Here he is arrested as a socialist newspaper editor. He did a 180 in his wartime experience, seeing what happened at the front, seeing officers flee their soldiers and leaving them to the mercy of German and Austrian soldiers. And he turned to right-wing nationalism. And so he actually had rhetoric from socialism, but his mortal enemy were the socialists. So let's talk a little bit about the ideology. Here he is, by the way, with the black shirts, those veterans. Remember I mentioned those before with the Wall Street Pooch and Smedley Butler, and the Bonus Army. So they talk about a lost golden age. And the thought was we should return back to the Roman Empire. This should remind you a little bit of transcendentalism, but what the word we're looking for is, this is I know this sounds weird, but fascism is a romantic movement, where they look back to some idealized past, and wasn't that great? So it's romantic. And so this is about a Roman rally in front of the arena, the great arena in Rome, we call it the Colosseum. Here is the redoing of the Roman, well, it's a track for track and field, but it's following the Roman Circus Maximus, which is where they did chariot races, and all the Greco-Roman statues they remade to go back to this glory days. Now they don't want to become Rome again. They really push this idea is we're going to go to a bold new future, but reestablish the glory of Italy, back when Italy was great. And so that's where they get fascism. Fascism directly comes from the Roman Republic, the term fascio. So the Roman proconsul, as a symbol, think of it more like an executive, close to like a prime minister or president in the Roman Republic. They would carry a fasce as a symbol of Roman law. And it was basically this. One rod, think about a wooden rod, easy to break, snap it, an individual weak. But a bundle of rods, all of us together, is strong. And that was the idea of the Roman Republic. All together are strong. You can't break a bundle. Another example they would use was a fist. You try to punch someone like that, you break your finger. Here, strong. A lot of fist references. And at times of emergency, the Roman Republic could have the council to take over the power of a dictator, 1 year, 2 year term. Eventually, Caesar would become dictator for life. That's the empire. But a dictator has the power of life or death. That's the battle axe. They can order execution. So in the Roman Empire, they used the fasce and the battle axe as a Roman Empire, and so Mussolini adopted that as the glory of Rome, and that's where fascism, the term comes from. But it's a term, this all came about after World War I. And I should add, they wanted to go back to as many Roman references as they could, and no one had any idea how the Romans saluted. And so they copied a salute. They copied a salute that was actually created by this guy named Francis Bellamy, and it's called the Bellamy salute. That's the Bellamy salute. So that's Mussolini doing the salute. Here's a little pamphlet for little kids to learn the salute. So they thought this is like the Roman salute. They had no idea. They just made it up. It was just made up. Here's Mussolini and, oh yeah, another fascist. Adolf Hitler doing the fascist salute. And the idea would be not just for the Roman Republic, it was like hail or allegiance to the leader. And so here are a bunch of, these are the black shirts giving the fascist, this is in Britain. Actually, this is the fascist party in Britain. Here are fascists around a monument in Italy, here in Italy. Francis Bellamy. All of you know Francis Bellamy, don't you? All of you know something he wrote, don't you? What did he write? You want to know? You all know it. All of you know it. You could say it by heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag and to the republic for which it stands, one nation indivisible with liberty and justice for all. That's what Francis Bellamy wrote in the competition back in 1889 about trying to write a pledge for the government, generic government that would best protect rights. He was a socialist minister in the United States. So socialists wrote this. And during World War I, they added a few words to it. I pledge allegiance. Right after the war, they added it officially. I pledge allegiance to the flag. See, you all know it, right? And then in 1954, in the middle of the Cold War, because we're not godless communists, they added what? Under God. So that was all done as a Cold War measure. And now you all, by state law, have to say it every day in school. That is the law of the state of Montana. And so that's why you do that. Bellamy wanted a way to salute the flag. So guess what he came up with? He winged and made up a Roman salute. Why? Because the Roman Republic would be historically famous for being the first established republic. Now that's not 100% true, but that's what he thought. So he came up with this, the Bellamy salute. And when you do the Pledge of Allegiance, you do that. Oh, there's more fascists. Oh no, wait, there's not fascists. Those are little kids in America doing the Bellamy salute to the United States flag. Wouldn't that be a little awkward seeing that now? Gee, I wonder why they switched this in 1942. I have no idea. They actually went to this for a while too. Yeah, but eventually it would become this important. It seems like something you would do like a salute in a science fiction movie. Some bad science fiction movie. So that's with the salute. So now you know the tie-in here. And I do find it fascinating that with two different Red Scares, they still demanded the Pledge of Allegiance. It was written by a socialist. So let's get the fascist ideology. That's why I'm a little bit awkward doing it here in front of you. It's just weird, even though we know, but still. So, fascist ideology. Now we're doing this really quick, but it was intense nationalism. You must give up your own personal point of view and give all for the state. For the state. Next, intensely social Darwinistic. Intensely. And this is usually measured, it's a conservative movement. And that is why, like when people might call people more liberal, if you're a socialist, or someone who's more conservative, a fascist, this is why. But it's nothing at all. That's not true. But there's a hierarchy. They believe there's a natural hierarchy that is scientifically proven. They're really big into fake science. Anything about fascists, they really like fake science. Fortunately, for example, the Nazis were really big into the hard sciences. Fortunately. That's really fortunate. But there's hierarchy. Hierarchy by class, hierarchy by race, hierarchy about your nationality, your ethnic group. So language, or Aryans or Slavs, which they made up the Aryans, or sex. Men are superior. Women are there to help men. So the cult of domesticity would be very much part of fascism. Very much. Women have a role, and that's to have children and care for the men. It's very much part of this. as you can see by but the organizing principle of fascism is anti-socialism. Anti-socialism. That is the organizing principle. That is why one of the big arguments about today, when people say someone's a fascist and they're not, one of the big arguments by people who really know it say, well, there's no real socialist movement in the United States, for example, around the world. It's not very strong, so they're not fascist. Then other people will say, well, they're close enough. It's actually kind of a humorous argument about people who are really into this. It's like arguing how many angels are dancing on the head of a pin. Meaning, sometimes these questions are unknowable. But anti-socialist. So the organizing principle of Nazi Germany was anti-socialism. And yes, they went by the name National Socialist. Don't get yourself bogged down in names. And they're very anti-liberal. That meant weakness. Individual rights meant you're weak. Democracy is weak, and it's better. Remember, men are strong. And so, if you're worried about your own individual rights, you're not worried about the state. And that makes you weak. That makes you vulnerable because you're selfish about yourself and not the state. Democracy, if you have weak, inferior people pick leaders, that means that clever socialists can step in and sway your vote. And so, they would look at it as liberals and those who want democracy and constitutions, they make us weak and allow the socialists to win. So therefore, they're just as bad. By definition, anti-democracy. This is and by the way, I like this one, Trajan's column, it's right, or not Trajan's column, Trajan's Arch, right here, the Colosseum is right here, the Roman Forum is right here. We should go. Tell you one thing about Italy. Good food. Okay. But the important element is there's a lot of manly stuff. You're going to get a lot of the leader without a shirt doing manly things, hanging out with men. And a lot about them, like he would brag about how many mistresses he had because he's a man. Really, it really appeals to young men. Young, insecure men. That's really it. Yeah. So basically, young, insecure men, that's by definition, therefore, that's redundant. That's basically saying young men. Young people, almost everybody. But we will vanquish our enemies together. And there's a lot of like, boot on a throat references. And they have held us down. They're the ones who embarrassed us, and we will defeat them. In fact, Mussolini would make it very clear. Who are your enemies? I will get them. I will destroy them for you because I'm a man. And they're very much corporate state. Mussolini literally said state and corporate power. That's why they're pro-monopoly, anti-union. That's why some of the wealthiest people in the United States did the one in Mussolini, because he got rid of labor unions. And that one is about the corporate state. You see the corporatization. Corporatization. I learned that when I was in Italy, just kind of out of, no. Prego. Just do that, which meant, thanks, you're good. Just add a little, nah, and then the people, then they'll think you're cute. And not be too upset that you can't speak much Italian. Gracias. Yeah. When I was in Italy, a lot, little grandmas really liked me. But also this idea of the mass will. You as an individual is weak. Together we are strong. The fash. You are weak. The leader is strong. The state is strong. Thus, the leader principle. And the cult of a leader. So Mussolini doing manly things, swimming, standing without a shirt. He's like doing construction. Here's the fascist headquarters in Bologna. Yeah, I know. Too bad they destroyed this after World War II. This would be a monument to see. But that glowering face, he's not afraid. So speaking of manly things, if you know anything about the Soviet Union's long gone. Now the oligarchy, totalitarian state in Russia, there's a lot of Putin without a shirt. So here's my finger button. Putin without a shirt. All right, I'm Putin, trust me. Yes, he too has a magnet in his head. So, manly things like fencing and athletics. And so here's a picture of Mussolini. I showed you guys this. So, this. And then, of course, the power of the state. Look at this. Trucks of nuns. Wait for it. Fascist nuns. Not just one truck, many trucks. Italy. Running. That shows you the power of fascism. Wow. Is your life now changed? Yeah. My guess is you weren't expecting to walk into class today and see fascist nuns.
No way.
So, he talked about a state called a totalitarian state. And this is a creature of the modern world, a creature of World War I. It is total one-party control. So it's still technically like it has elements, the rhetoric of democracy, but it's certainly not a democracy. That means total political, economic, and social control. That is an illustration from a very famous book written after World War II by a socialist. And constant total war. Remember I told you, the way to get power is to find an enemy. Who's their enemy? The socialists. And where are the socialists? Well, anyone could be a socialist, right? Anyone could be an enemy or harboring dangerous ideals that will bring down the state, like if you want democracy, you're an enemy. You believe in equal rights for men and women, you're making us weak. And there's a big state that calls themselves a socialist state, isn't there now? What country calls themselves a socialist state? No, they're now a totalitarian monopoly state. No, in the 1920s. What state called themselves socialist? Yeah, the Union of Soviet Socialistic Republics. The Soviet Union. So, and by the way, people can call them you can call yourself anything, doesn't mean you are. So there's enemies everywhere. And it could be any one of us could be an enemy. I mean, I could see it being very decadent that we allow women in this class. Then you'd be expected to have rights and weaken us. By the way, that's kind of scary. And a lot of people would agree with my horrible statement there. So we cannot have dissent. Remember the issue of total war. There's enemies all over, you can't have dissent. And so we have to crack down on anybody who might disagree. And that could be anybody who might want anything from a democracy. They could be somebody who's an actual socialist. They could be a group of people we just don't trust because there's something about them. They're sinister. They're behind all of this. They're a group that we cannot trust by their nationality or their religion, perhaps. So, propaganda is everywhere. You're going to see pictures of Mussolini or Hitler or any authoritarian dictator. They're everywhere. Once again, I showed you and you can't now escape this vision. of the creepy Putin. But his picture's everywhere in Russia, everywhere. And people have him in his homes. In China, they have a now pretty monstrous totalitarian state and a secret police with spies everywhere, listening, watching, and people who get out of line. They might say something and nothing happens. Someone else might say the very same thing and they are disappeared.
They went on vacation.
In fact, this is one of the symbols of a totalitarian state. It's this. It's this at 4 a.m. The 4 a.m. knock at the door, and that you're gone. And your family's gone. By the way, what's going to happen to them? Terror. Now, how does it work? So there's secret police and spies everywhere because we know there are enemies everywhere. So we have to be listening and watching. So let's say I say something, and I'll say something like, well, I don't think the Soviet threat is as big. You know, it's that big. We don't have to organize our entire state before that. Yeah, they're dangerous, but they're not going to attack us. Didn't I just say something that could be construed as dangerous? What will happen? A friendly reminder. I might come back with broken fingers, maybe a couple less teeth. No, what will happen? One of you rats would tell on me, and you're a spy, and you would tell on me. Well, what a great way to get rid of people you just don't like, huh? What, that partridge gave me a C? Huh. And then what happens? Oh, hey, what happens to me? I'm disappeared. What happens to my family? They're disappeared. They might linger on for a couple days and they're gone. What will you? And then what will happen next day in class? There'll be a new teacher, and what will all of you act like? Yeah, and that. In fact, who's Parker? Never heard of him. And what will happen to the person that ratted on them? They'll get a reward. Maybe an armband with like some kind of symbol on it or something. I don't know. I can think of all kinds of stuff. And the next time somebody gets out of line, what will happen? Somebody said something that can be construed as, who knows? It'll be a race. Who can rat first to get the reward? And that's how it works. You reward the rats. You make them heroes. Hey, will your parents do something you don't like? You get mad for coming in late? Rat on them. You think that happened? This is a scary state. So what do most people do in a totalitarian state? Do they say anything? They just shut up. Mussolini did not have the guts for this. Hitler. He didn't have the stomach. Mussolini did have camps where you concentrate your political enemies. The first concentration camps in Germany, in fact, almost all of them were for political prisoners, heads of labor union. Anybody know what book this is from? Yeah, 1984. A socialist by the name of George Orwell wrote this about. He was so angry at he saw the promise of the Soviet Union and what they became. So that's what he wrote. Has anyone read it? It's a really good book, but it's very British. You got to have British references. So let's jump right to this. Germany. We got the bell about ready to ring. So let's do Germany really quick. As in, we'll finish it on Wednesday. We got to talk about the growth of Nazis. Deutsche. So National Socialist German Workers' Party, A is by and they're originally the German Worker Party, D. You sound like you're ready for you would be a great, you represent China well. I pride myself. Yeah, that's yeah, in China, you can't mention Tiananmen Square. No, I mean, what happened? Only nothing but glorification of the state.
It was just experience.
They in China, it's such a monstrous totalitarian state. They grade people on.
Yeah, the social credit.
Yeah, the social credit is terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. Maybe someday we can get that. That would be so cool.
Prolonged vacation.
Because you didn't, you were still walking on the street when the light turned. Goodbye, everybody. Oh, short answer question. I didn't know.
It's 3 hours.
You're doing this.
And I was really about to tell what was for what.
So I couldn't take it full.
Two spaces, like.
And you had a little, but you also blended together your organization. You made it, and you have to have them separate. That's what you do.
Wednesday or Thursday?
Maps due Wednesday. We have a short answer question on Thursday.
Oh,
Mr. Burgers.
Jawohl.
What do we have?
Oh, yeah. So maps, there, yeah, do you have the map?
Yeah.
So the maps are on Wednesday, the directions are on the third sheet. Yeah. So I got Tanner's and. So the eclipse, beginning of 5th, does that sound about right when it's beginning? End of lunch. 11:40, yeah, it's beginning lunch. Do not look at the sun.